the speed limit across the city to 20 miles an hour. That, however, is something that can only be done with a local law change to the city administrative code. And we do support the city council taking those efforts.
20 miles an hour? Zorro wants to lower the speed limit throughout New York City to 20 miles an hour? I guess Zorro wants to give drivers extra time to look at the piles of garbage on the sidewalk. Perhaps he wants to give tourists extra time to take pictures of the colossal piles of human doodle on Fifth Avenue. Or maybe Zorro is thinking about career criminals with this new policy. Although I have never done this before personally, I'm pretty sure it's easier to confiscate someone's car when the driver is barely allowed to move around. In fairness to Zohran Mamdani, I believe his new speeding policy is limited to school zones. As is often the case with doofus Democrats, Zorro is thinking about the children. Oh, the children! It's all about the children! What's ironic about this? Zohran Mamdani will be relying on police officers to enforce the new speed limit. The same police officers that Zorro demonizes. The same police officers that he doesn't want responding to domestic violence calls. Your husband's had too much to drink. Make sure to call your shrink. Do not call the precinct. It's getting violently, but don't rely on police. Call social worker Shanice. Zorro wants to use the police to enforce another tax on civilians in New York City, or as Zorro prefers to call it, speeding tickets. But at the same time, Zohran Mamdani is making it increasingly difficult for cops to do their real jobs, which is fighting the abundance of crime in this dump. Earlier this week, it was reported that there is another new law that New Yorkers will have to follow. Allow me to introduce you guys to the New York State Dark Skies Protection Act. If this new law is passed and approved in Albany, it would require all residents to turn off their outdoor lights by 10 or 11 o'clock every night. The law would also apply to residential buildings and commercial buildings. Now, let's think about this logically for a second. Why would New York implement a law requiring all outdoor lights to be turned off at night? I could understand implementing a new law that bans the Islamic call to prayer at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I'm having a hard time thinking of logical reasons to turn off the lights in the city that supposedly never sleeps. Maybe Zorro and his pretend friend Kat Hochul, the esteemed governor of the Islamic Republic, maybe they are encouraging their subjects to get exercise by playing a rousing game of hide and seek in the dark. Perhaps they're turning off the lights to combat that pesky global warming. I mean, New York is already warming up unnaturally because Whoopi Goldberg can't contain her toxic ass gas. Maybe they're turning off the lights to eliminate an additional source of heat. Maybe they're trying to help the Ghostbusters by making it easier for them to locate and identify ghosts. Or maybe, just maybe, they are intentionally making New York City unsafe for normal people by giving criminals the benefit of committing their crimes in complete and total darkness. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Let's go and get to the sponsor for today's video, my good friends at Fluffernoggin. I am not a big snacker. I don't eat a lot of junk food, but there are times during the week when I'm too busy to stop and get lunch, need something quick and easy, but also filling enough to get me to dinner. One thing I found that fills me up, beef jerky. Problem is, a lot of beef jerky tastes like you're biting into a flat tire. Good news is, I no longer have that problem because I started buying gourmet beef jerky from Fluffernoggin. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell is a Fluffernoggin? Fluffernoggin is gourmet beef jerky that is 100% made in America. You don't have to worry about consuming foreign cows because all these cows are homegrown. Each recipe from Fluffernoggin is handcrafted with the perfect amount of seasoning. First beef jerky I have ever tasted that literally melts in your mouth. Fluffernoggin comes in a variety of flavors, ranging from mango habanero, Korean barbecue. They even have a flavoring of craft beer. Or, if you're like me, you'll just stick with the original style flavoring. So click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Use my promo code BTL30, BTL30. Receive 30% off your first purchase with Fluffernoggin. Local news in New York City reported about the latest draconian law that is designed to encourage normal people to get the hell out of there. Watch for yourself.
This bill would require many outdoor lights be turned off between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So this would affect residential, commercial, industrial, and municipal buildings in the state.
I keep telling you guys, Zohran Mamdani is intentionally destroying New York City. We were warning New Yorkers about this last year. Unfortunately, native New Yorkers, they are finding out the hard way that elections have consequences. The truth is, most national politicians, they have minimal impact on your day-to-day life. For example, besides dealing with the pollution from her toxic mouth farts, Jazz Crockett has no effect on people living in Florida. Hell, Jazz doesn't affect people in Dallas because she hadn't accomplished a damn thing. AOC LGBT, Bernard Sanders, they have zero impact on your day-to-day life, but your local city council, your local mayor, they can have a major impact on your community. It's one thing to have an incompetent mayor. You can survive incompetence. Hell, we just survived 4 years of incompetence with our former fearless leader, Johnny B. Biden. You can overcome incompetence, but it's different when you're dealing with someone who is intentionally destructive. Zohran Mamdani is no dummy. Zorro is not incompetent. Everything that is happening right now in New York City, this is all by design. But Uncle KC, that doesn't make sense. If Zorro is ruining life in New York City, he'll never get reelected. Zorro's not worried about getting reelected, and it's not because the next election is 4 years away. Zorro isn't worried about getting reelected because he is making New York City incredibly appealing to the people who elected him to begin with. For the most part, Zorro was not elected by native New Yorkers, people born in New York City or born in America. He was elected by Islamic New Yorkers. Zohran Mamdani received 1.1 million votes. Now, there are approximately 1 million Muslims living in New York City. Zorro, he received 90% of the Muslim vote. Are you starting to understand? Is this starting to make sense? Zohran Mamdani is making New York City appealing to Islamists while he's encouraging normal people to get the hell out of there. Yesterday, Kat Hochul, who's up for re-election later this year, if New Yorkers finally wake the hell up, they'll politically declaw the cat and get her the hell out of Albany. But yesterday, Kat was talking about the mass exodus in New York City. She was insinuating that millionaires and billionaires are selfish. She was insinuating that millionaires and billionaires are unpatriotic because they refuse to fund her welfare programs. They refuse to donate their money so Kat Hochul can give it to people who don't work and produce nothing but toxic ass gas. Watch it for yourself.
I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. And I would say remote work changed everything. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan or work in New York State, and they were captives to our state. They were going to stay. We saw that that's not the case. I mean, Wall Street, businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure.
Why are all these rich people leaving my dump? I'm a nice governor. I'm willing to work with the rich people, but they have to be willing to pay their fair share. There was a word that Kat used that perfectly described normal people living in New York City. She didn't refer to them as citizens. She didn't refer to them as Americans. Did you notice that Kat Hochul referred to New Yorkers as captives? I'm pretty sure she did not mean they were captivated by the city. Kat Hochul was describing people living in New York City basically as being prisoners, which is an appropriate description because for decades, some people felt like they didn't have a choice but to live in New York City. If you wanted to work on Wall Street, if you wanted to work on Broadway, media, sports media, luxury real estate, insurance, you had to live in New York City because that's where all the high-paying jobs were. You had to deal with the crime, had to deal with the taxes, had to accept paying $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month in rent for an apartment that's the size of Brock Lesnar's shoe. Years ago, I spent a few days in an apartment in Manhattan. I was visiting a friend. When I laid down to sleep at night, my feet were in his neighbor's kitchen. I knew it was time to wake up in the morning when his neighbor's dog hiked his leg and emptied his bladder between my toes. For decades, New York City has held people captive with high-paying jobs and a somewhat luxurious lifestyle. But the COVID changed everything. Unfortunately for doofus Democrats, their plans with the COVID backfired. Corporations realized that they didn't need massive office complexes in Manhattan. Most of their employees could work from home. Those employees realized that they didn't need to pay income tax in New York. They didn't need to support Mahmoud with their tax dollars. They could move to Florida, they could move to Texas or Tennessee and pay no income tax. You combine that with Zohran Mamdani turning New York City into an Islamic dump, and it's not hard to figure out why there is a mass exodus. However, this is a major problem. We cannot have America's largest city turning into a headquarters for Islamists. Radical Islamists, they don't just take over one city. They're not content with one neighborhood or one zip code or one of the largest cities in the world. Radical Islamists, they want everything. The entire premise of their ideology is to spread radical Islam throughout the world. And if America loses New York City, it's the beginning of this ideology spreading throughout the rest of the country. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.